Hey, welcome to the Mitten Music. Once again, here with my good friend Jeff. And we are also here with, should I call you Brian or Big B?
Either one.
Either one?
One works. Yeah.
Brian, maybe for the sake of ease, I'll call you Brian today.
Sure.
Hopefully Jeff doesn't mess us up, and when you
probably-
say Ryan or Brian, make sure you're
I know
popping the
I've
B.
got to be very clear today.
Gotta be popping the B, man.
So welcome, Brian.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is great.
So we got Brian Burleson from Big B and the Actual Proof,
Yes.
right?
Isn't that a name?
It is.
That is a.
I'm
that is a
interested to
name
hear
for a
about the band. Yeah.
Big B. I think I might. Maybe I will just say Big B. I don't know. I like.
You know
it.
what? You may alternate. You may switch your game up.
Well, you're also the only other person besides me and Jeff in the room, so I feel like if
Right.
I'm not talking to Jeff, I'm talking to you. You have such a creative, interesting. Originally I wanted to say theme, but I think it's more than a theme. It's your what the word's escaping me now.
The album name?
No, just
Oh.
it's more than the album. It's more than the band name. It's more than the artwork. It's more than how you dress. It's more than the sound of the music. But it's all encompassing in this. Like again, a lack for a better word, this theme you have going. It kind of intertwines the lyrics, everything you have going. It's creative. You don't see that much in bands these days.
If I was going to tell you what we were shooting for, I think cinematic. We really have a cinematic approach.
Everything intertwines together so well. It all
Thanks.
relates.
Yeah, there's key influences I have that we can talk about. But
For sure.
I describe our brand and our approach as film noir meets blues guitar. And
your album, it's the noir.
the noir album.
The noir.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
going to say,
big-
was I
big-
saying that wrong? No, that's
Yeah,
what it
it's,
is.
So for those who don't know what noir is, you want to explain that, Brian?
Yeah, film noir is a genre that kind of starts in the 40s and it really continues on until now. There's kind of contemporary film noir, but classic film noir is kind of from the 40s up into the 50s. But it's really something that the French identified as this, mostly crime films, but a genre that really had this kind of bleak, approach, especially around crime. It was kind of hopeless, and it finds its origins in hard-boiled fiction, especially after World War II. So you have a lot of these guys coming home from World War II that got Dear John letters and everything, and they're certainly not the most hopeful types.
Yeah.
And also they identify with violence.
Sure.
Gangsters kind of fit the
Right.
theme a
Yeah.
little bit. That's what I
Yeah.
think of as the old
It
school
is.
gangster style.
Yeah.
And that's just a piece of it. That's not the whole pie.
Exactly,
Right.
but yeah, it's what people commonly approach with it, and then the private investigator film, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's more than that. I mean, like you could consider Taxi Driver is a noir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite films.
I can see that. Yeah.
The inspiration for one of the songs on the record. Actually.
Wasn't that one of Robert De Niro's first movies?
What's that?
Wasn't Taxi?
Taxi Driver, one of De Niro's first films.
Yeah. Or am I thinking of the wrong tech?
No, that's yeah.
That's right.
I don't think it was one of his first.
Oh, I
but
guess
it's
it's
big.
an older one. That's
Yeah,
late 70s.
76.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
76.
I kind of know what I'm talking about.
Definitely
bit.
was a young De Niro for sure.
Yeah, maybe that's more.
Yeah.
He did look very young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In some of those stills.
Yeah,
from that movie.
he was in Godfather 2 right around the same time.
That's a good point.
So yeah.
Interesting.
But yeah, your lyrics are definitely on that vibe, so which makes sense. Plays into the theme. You hear about some robbery. You hear about crime. You hear about a lot of different things. And I feel like I wanted to ask you this. I was going to ask you maybe this later, but I feel like maybe the whole thing is tied together because I catch the sirens at the beginning and the sirens at the end.
Yeah,
Ooh.
Is
that's,
that I assume that was
that's
intentional.
absolutely intentional.
Yeah.
And that's a Pink Floyd thing.
Oh.
Pink Floyd is a huge influence on me. And
Really?
it's funny, you can boil me down to the first two concerts that my only sibling, my older brother, took me to.
Okay.
First concert I ever saw was Roger Waters of Pink Floyd on his first solo tour.
Okay.
And the second concert was Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Oh.
Freaking
And,
sweet.
and if you go into my basement right now, there's like Stevie Ray Vaughan stuff and Roger Waters posters.
Wow.
You
down
kind of got
down in my
spoiled then
studio.
for the rest of your
Oh, I did.
your life.
When I tell that to people, and they're like, "Man, I saw the Bee Gees," or something like that. Or I saw REO Speedwagon as my first show, and it's like,
I mean, the fact you saw Stevie Ray
Yeah,
is
I saw Stevie Ray 10 times before he died. I got to meet him once,
Holy
Wow.
smokes.
which is incredible.
yes,
That's
it
awesome.
is.
Yeah, yeah.
Jeff actually next weekend's going to see his first concert, and I feel like you went with your brother, right? Your first concert with your
Yeah,
brother.
it was my brother too, and we went to
And-
Metallica and Guns N' Roses and Faith No More, and I thought that was.
A high
I mean, it is a
watermark.
pretty high
That's
point, and I'm
awesome
going to
show.
see him again next week, but not quite the same experience, I'm sure. But when you're a youngster and I was very cultured that day.
Yeah.
Back at the Silver
it's
Dome.
It's important.
Yeah.
That stuff's important. It's pivotal in your life, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I love that. I still go to a fair amount of shows, you know, and it really is. It's life-changing in some instances.
For
But,
sure.
you know, that Roger Waters show, Waters, you know, I don't know that you could probably make the argument that he really perfected concept albums.
Yeah.
And then the Noir album is basically a concept album.
Yeah.
And you know, you think about like The Wall,
Yep.
and you know the sounds that are in the beginning of it, and even when they say "Isn't this where?" and then you know when they start back over, "We came in," is you know
Yeah.
bookends the record.
Right, yeah.
Well, that was a plan. Is I wanted to bookend the record with the same stuff.
Gotcha.
So that you know it also you know it ages me, especially being you know almost in my mid-50s here, that if you had auto reverse tapes, you know, and you listen to
Yeah.
stuff on cassette, that there would be a click, and you know you would go right from the end of a record right back to the beginning of it, you know. So that was you would really notice that stuff rather. You know, than
Right.
now if you listen to that stuff disjointed from each other, you don't really
Right.
recognize it. But yeah, there's a circular thing about the record. I'm glad you picked up on that because it was certainly very intentional.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
mentioned concept. That's maybe a better word than I was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
If you maybe you do, maybe I'm not sure if you have plans for another album. Would the concept you've had carry over, or would it be a different concept?
Potentially, you know, when I say our brand is film noir meets blues guitar, I don't know. I don't know because it really started with there was one song that I wrote, and it was kind of inspired by listening to a lot of Tom Waits at the time.
Okay.
Because I would say before this point in my songwriting, I think I'd written more like autobiographical stuff, you know, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And I really appreciated how Tom Waits operates as a storyteller, you know, and then it made me think, I want to tell stories. So I wrote Red Carpet.
Yeah,
You
that's
know.
a good one.
And in thinking about that, you know, I was so pleased with that song. I was like, yeah, I've really nailed what I was going for. It was like, I could do a whole record of stuff like this because Red Carpet is inspired by, you know, and again, we're talking about film noir here, a very modern noir, LA Confidential.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
So,
The music video kind of gave me that vibe too. LA Confidential.
yeah.
A little bit. So the music video for Red Carpet is awesome. If you want to
Thanks.
see all encompassing what the concept we're talking about, go
Thanks.
watch the music video for Red Carpet.
You know, before we were, when we were talking off air here, or before the podcast, I was talking about how I kind of, you know, back in college, I went to Central Michigan and got a degree in broadcast and cinematic arts, and I got to dabble some in video production and audio production. You know, it taught me some stuff, but I had stayed away from video production because the stuff that I did in college, I was not happy with.
Okay.
You know, but making this record afforded me the opportunity to go back and kind of
Use
exercise those demons, and I was able, you know, it's really fun to say, and I say this for anybody out there who has an artistic bent. If you have counted yourself out of something, or you're talking yourself out of something, I'm telling you right now, that is a personal red flag. Don't talk yourself out of stuff. If who you were in your development 5, 10, 15, even 20 years ago, whatever, was not capable of that, it doesn't mean that you're not capable of it. Okay? So that's the thing is, I
Words
mean,
to
with
live by right
yeah,
there.
with 3 iPhones, we shot the performance stuff for that video in my living room. Those big
What?
long curtains and everything, that's in the living room at my house.
Wow.
And then we shot the other incidental stuff. The guy who produced the record, Peter J., and did such a masterful job. He is J. Robert Silver, the producer that's in the video.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And Simone is his wife, Laura.
Oh,
You know, you'll see him in the credits there, but
Okay.
yeah. And
I wasn't able to put any of that together, but I
No.
know all the parts you're talking about.
Yeah,
from the video.
we had such a blast shooting that. And here's another thing. You know, you want to talk about a budget hack. I bought like a 2009 Mac Pro that already had
Final Cut Pro.
Final Cut Pro
Yeah.
on it for something like $350 or $400, and that was all I used to edit that video. I taught myself Final Cut Pro, and
You
and
did
it.
way more on this video than I thought. I was going to ask you, like, so how much were you involved in the video? Like,
Yeah.
It sounds like literally everything.
Yeah, but
Oh
yeah,
my gosh,
yeah.
that makes it even 10 times cooler. Are
Well,
you kidding
thanks,
me?
thanks.
You
But
did a
it-
fantastic job.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And again, I say this, you know, not about myself, but for anybody out there who's listening. It is so fulfilling to do that kind of stuff. And if you find yourself talking yourself out of it, remember what I'm saying right now. Challenge yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Really challenge yourself, because, you know, your ability to do things, to transform your experience and to do stuff is, I mean,
Well, and if
It's
you don't
without
try,
limit,
even
you
if you don't try it, you never know,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you might not. I mean, everybody's their biggest critic typically, and so it may not be where you want it to be. But
Yeah.
if you don't try, like we did, we did the podcast. We're like, let's do it, right? If we didn't have fun with it and try it, we would have never been where we are now.
Several times over the last 2 years, we could have gave up. Like,
Yeah.
you know, things got. We couldn't get an interview for the next month or this reason, or we got busy, and like several times we could have like, well, we tried, but we just kind of powered through it. And after we powered through a little bit, got back in the groove, and we're like, yeah, this is why we do it, man. And then added more of this and that. Jeff's been doing a great job of adding extra pieces to what we should do, you know, maybe video clips here, there, just to kind of promote us more in other spaces than, you know, Spotify is the main place that people will listen to us on, but we're on other streaming services as well.
Right.
But yeah, so I'm giving you a high five, Jeff. Thank you
thanks.
so much. I appreciate you. man.
These kind of things are an important metaphor for how you approach your life. You know, it really is. And I think it's easier, especially for young people, to get discouraged and kind of start talking themselves out of things. So
I felt like you have some background in that whole mindset you were talking to us earlier about.
a key thing about my life is that I'm a Nichiren Buddhist. And for those that don't know what that is, Nichiren was a Japanese monk that studied the teachings of the Buddha, and in particular seized upon something called the Lotus Sutra as being like the heart of Buddhism and the most important teaching. And then he kind of centered a practice that involves chanting a phrase, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, at this scroll called the Gohanzen, which represents, you know, every aspect of life, but down the center is Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Okay, this phrase. And anyway, becoming Buddhist really allowed me to kind of raise my own life state and cultivate wisdom, courage, compassion at a level that I hadn't been able to do in my past, you know, and then being able to apply that towards my life, you know, in creative pursuits, relationships, those kind of things. It's really been a transformative thing, you know, which is what it's supposed to be. And, you know, being able to, it has something to do with the name of the band, you know, Big B and the actual proof. I'm Big B, but the actual proof is something to do with the Buddhist practice. That's what we seek to show with what we do with our Buddhist practice, you know, is actual proof of the practice working in your life, you know.
Okay.
Wow.
And that's what it's absolutely been for me. Another thing for music fans out there, Herbie Hancock is probably the most famous, at least as far as artists go, Nichiren Buddhist that there is, and he has an instrumental called Actual Proof.
Ties it all together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, some other, you know, like Tina Turner that passed away recently was a Nichiren Buddhist.
Really?
Yeah,
I think I did hear. I didn't know that type of Buddha. I didn't know specifically the Buddhism, but I know she had focused more of her later life. And
not that you know, there's not worth in other religions. You know, I'm married to a Lutheran pastor.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
and
unique, yeah.
there's actually a term for Lubu is what they call it, Lutheran Buddhist. We're in a Lubu thing, which she gets
That's
a kick
cool.
out of. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I mean, if we could talk about religion for just a second, there's so many different religions, denominations within religions, and a lot of, and there's in parts of the world, the religions are a battlefield almost, where there's hate and anger and violence against. But whenever you hear anything about Buddhism, you automatically know it's the opposite of anything like that, right?
Yeah.
So I feel I hope I've never heard anyone attacking Buddhism and maybe I'm just ignorant and there's been wars, or I have no idea, but just the base and what I understand from a little bit of what you said today and what I've learned over time and this and that, it's just really cool. You make me wanna kind of learn about it a little more almost.
You know what? I would recommend it to anybody, and even if you're of a different faith. Buddhism operates as a religion, but it's a philosophy as well. So you don't have to necessarily approach it from a faith standpoint. It's really about enlightenment, and enlightenment is being able to cultivate wisdom. If you think, again, I'll make that kind of comparison to what I was like when I was younger. Anytime that I did something that was unwise and, failed at something or something like that, I didn't recognize the cause and effect that was within that. I didn't really analyze what the cause was that I made. I could certainly feel the effect of it.
Sure, yeah.
But I didn't recognize how unwise my approach might have been to that. And if I had taken a wiser approach to something, a more enlightened approach, that I would have been more likely to be successful at it,
Wow. Powerful.
It's I can't say enough good things about Buddhism.
I took a Buddhism class in college.
Did you?
Yeah, and I really, it was one of the best classes I took there at the time, and I learned a lot. I mean, it was very enlightening. Yeah, it was just, I can't say it was that form of Buddhism, but I learned aspects of that, and it was.
I know the question I'm about to ask isn't necessarily related to Buddhism, maybe adjacent. Did the title Wooden Kimono come out of anything related? No? Was that just...
No.
And because you said you were talking earlier about a Japanese monk.
Right,
I'm like,
right.
Kimono is from Japan, isn't it?
Yes.
I correct in that?
It's like a silk robe. But a wooden kimono is a Chicago underworld term for a coffin.
Oh, really?
That's
I
why.
did not know that.
That's why. Yeah.
Interesting.
That's why I'm gonna fit you for a wooden kimono. That's a revenge song, is what it is.
Wow.
Okay, that's making more sense.
Yeah, and
now.
if you look up wooden kimono, you'll see that it's a slang term for a coffin.
Huh.
Anybody listening, check out that song as well. It's a great tune.
Yes,
Thanks.
definitely. So this album you had out 1 year, or no, about a year or so now?
Yeah, it came out October, I think, 28th of 22.
Okay.
So we're like right at the 1 year anniversary of it.
Cool.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
now that's the only album for this concept for you guys and your band currently, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
What was the history for you? I think you talked a little bit prior before us being on air. You've been in music for a while, but how much did you produce yourself? What else have you been doing in the past that led up to this band?
Well, I did have another band called Big B and the Magic Bullets.
I thought that maybe sparked what your question was, because we noticed that on your website. Like, hey, it's a video with the band name's a little bit different though.
Yeah, that was a different band I had in the Detroit area, kind of from starting 2003, but really kind of hitting a high point around 06 and 07. We put out a record in, I think it was 06, called 11 Shots.
Okay.
So it was 11 songs, and that was a 6-piece band.
Oh, wow.
With the same drummer that I've got now, Aaron Pittman. What's up, Aaron? And but it was a different approach. I mean, musically, certainly less cinematic. You don't hear the horns and the strings on it to the extent that you do on this record.
Okay.
And again, a lot of those songs are a little more, I would consider, autobiographical.
Okay.
And like the lyrical content, not the same as like the stories that the Noir album is like a premise for a song or a song from a soundtrack.
Yeah.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
I
know,
felt like you could write a movie to your album.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you could
That
come
was-
up with a movie that goes along with it. I feel
that was in my thinking, and not unlike Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
Like the song "Horseshoes and Hand Grenades." When I introduced that live, I explained that it is related to kind of a subgenre of noir called the boxing film. And most famous example is a film called The Setup, but more contemporary example that would be Bruce Willis's storyline in Pulp Fiction.
Okay.
You remember when he's the boxer and he's supposed to throw the fight, and
that's
then
right.
he doesn't throw the fight,
That's
and that's
right.
how he ends up.
I forgot about that part of that. Was that? Yeah. I
Yeah.
haven't seen Pulp Fiction in a while, but now
Yeah.
I remember it.
So that Horseshoes and Hand Grenades is in part incorporates the boxing film as the inspiration, especially for the second verse. But so the older band Big B and the Magic Bullets, we put out one record which was nominated for Detroit Music Award.
Oh, cool.
And that was a nice honor. And
Did that band still have kind of that blues rock type of still foundation?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, About to Get Evil,
Oh, yeah.
that is on this record, was on that record as well. That was one where I was like, you know what, that's a good song, and it very much kind of has the dark psychological aspect of noir to it. So we ended up
Pulled
recording
that,
it for this.
into the new concept. Very
But yeah, that was a fun run. And I talked about this when we were kind of off air before, but so I did music for a few years, and then I stopped doing it, and got pretty miserable for a while there. And that certainly I can't blame that on anybody but myself, really, And coincidentally with my interest in Buddhism and certainly some other things that went on in my life, failed relationships, stuff like that, changing jobs.
Yeah.
I really started to recognize that I needed to do something to transform my life and to cultivate my own happiness on a regular basis, where it was not dependent on something. In other words, I'm going to make my cause daily in my life in a number of areas, but particularly music, because that anybody who plays an instrument knows that they've spent hours and hours of their own time, trying to get better on it and that kind of thing. And that's time well spent, really.
Yeah.
It's time well spent.
Mm-hmm.
And then as your, skills increase, or, like I learned how to play piano and program drums and that kind of thing, that opened up the orchestral aspect of things. During the pandemic, a big blessing for me was being able to get introduced to using orchestral sampling software and libraries, like a lot, really all of the strings that you hear on the Noir record, I played on a keyboard.
Okay.
And using these really, really nice sampling libraries from this place called Spitfire Audio that, like Hans Zimmer licenses some of his stuff through Spitfire Audio. And it was so awesome. Here I am in my basement during the pandemic. I had one of those essential jobs where I still had to go and work and everything. But in the evening, I was spending time making soundtrack quality music for our record and just being really, really inspired. Like, oh, this is what I have always wanted to do. It's really, really great. Yeah.
That's even something extra.
Yeah, and still, certainly have that in my tool bag now as we go forward. But
The horns on the album, were those also samples, or was that real horns?
a lot of the saxophone comes from two different guys,
Okay.
Wow.
Johnny Evans and Joshua James, who I'll plug because he's now a member of the band.
Oh, there
okay.
you go. Cool.
Joshua James, I encountered through something called Theater Bazaar Orchestra. Are you guys familiar with Theater Bazaar?
No, not at all.
All right, for anybody out there, check out Theater Bazaar. Theater Bazaar is this Halloween party that has been going on in Detroit for, I want to say, 20 years now.
Okay.
And it started on a series of lots, houses right next to the state fairgrounds, the Detroit area, like 8 Mile and Woodward area.
Yep.
And for those, from this area, that area got kind of decrepit at one point, where the state fairgrounds were, not a place that you would want to be.
Yeah.
But anyway, these very talented artistic types, bought the houses and the land there, and they would put on this Halloween party. They had an outdoor stage that stays out there all year, so it would just get cooler looking every year because it would get more weathered.
Yeah, fair.
And it was an incredible event for anybody who loves Halloween. Really, the old outdoor Theater Bazaar was an incredible event, but it kept getting bigger and bigger until I think it reached a point, and I hope I'm not describing this incorrectly, but the legality of putting that on, and it ended up becoming a problem. So they ended up 1 year moving it to what was at the time the State Theater in Detroit, now the Fillmore.
Okay, yep.
And then they took up residence in the Masonic Temple in Detroit. Which
Is
that the Fox Theater?
No.
No. I'm thinking. Okay, never mind.
No, but in that area,
Because I've been to all three, and I'm mixing them together. I think
the Masonic Temple is a really unique structure. Okay, you can go read about it online, or you can take a tour of it. But it is really incredible and has all these rooms upon rooms upon rooms. It's like a Kubrick nightmare come to life. It really is.
awesome.
It's
Yeah.
awesome. And for them to host Theater Bazaar there
next level
is
stuff.
really a great fit. So some years back, Theater Bazaar started having this musical group called the Theater Bazaar Orchestra as part of their event. And it was just really cool. They sound kind of like a New Orleans funeral band. That's one aspect of their sound.
Sure.
But I just thought they were really cool. And they really kind of blew up on my radar. And then when we were making the record, I'm like, I want to have, just to kind of unite our karma with Detroit and that cool event and loving the sound. I reached out to Joshua James, the guy who is the front man and organizer of Theater Bazaar Orchestra, and an incredible force for good in his own right. He's an educator, kind of runs a high school music program and is active in several bands, but just has great chops and just a really, really good dude, just a force for good. So I reached out to him, and we collaborated by talking on the phone and emailing for the better part of 2 years, and he ended up doing work on 500 Large, the heist song that is on the record.
Okay.
So back in May, my drummer had extended this standing invitation to Josh, like, you should come out and play with us. So he came out and played with us at a gig, and we all had such a blast. And he's like, I want to join. I want to do this. So now Joshua James, when he's available, like I said, he's a busy dude, but for the most part, he's available to be in our group. So it's really nice to do the noir stuff with a sax player who is a movie fan and totally gets us.
Yeah.
So anyway, he's on the record, and we had some stand-up bass.
That was the next thing I was going to ask. I feel like there's some stand-up bass on there.
Yeah,
I'm sure someone played that.
James Simonson plays on one song. He plays on Just Another Harlem Sunset, the instrumental that closes the record.
Yeah,
And
love
then
that song.
Yeah, we were trying to remember that name of that song earlier when we were walking in.
That song I can see definitely is just in a lot of different movies. But what it made me think of is actually, for some reason, David Lynch and like Twin Peaks and anything along that lines.
You are so on with that.
Yeah.
You are so the guy who does the music for David Lynch passed away last year. Angelo Badalamenti.
I have the Twin Peaks soundtrack on CD. It's beautiful.
In particular, there's a song from Fire Walk With Me called "The Pink Room" that has stand-up bass in it, and that was kind of in my head when I was writing that. And it's kind of like the credits, the end credits.
Yeah.
Yes,
Right,
I know
exactly.
For the record too. But I'm so glad to hear.
Yay,
you
another
say
David Lynch fan, or another Twin Peaks fan.
Right on. And that's another thing about Joshua is he's a big movie fan, and he gets that stuff. So when he and I talk music and stuff, it's really fun to like, oh, you get it without me having to say anything.
Right.
He was meant to be in your band for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is so cool.
So what do you guys? You talked about playing, and obviously when you have the right timing, certain people can play with you. What does that look like for you right now? Like, how often do you get out and play gigs? Where do you guys play?
It's about a couple times a month, and it's in the Detroit area.
Okay.
Having been in this area for a while, I don't know that we have the same kind of offerings as far as like primarily blues venues that we might have had 15 or 20 years ago. But there's a couple places that we play pretty regularly. A place down in Eastern Market called Lager House 5, a place in Hazel Park called Max Dugan's that has been a real good patron of the blues over the last few years. And that's kind of our thing. I would like to see us play out more.
Yeah.
And certainly like out your way. I would like to get out and play in Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
We'll be working on that. One thing that is a challenge for me in the last 2 years is I became a dad.
Oh, congrats.
And, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
sure.
And again, that's another aspect I'll account to.
It's a lot of work.
It is. It is. That's the thing about the Buddhist practice, though, is I became a dad at 52, and it's for me, I've got such gratitude for it because it's like the guy that I am at 52 is a better dude than he was at 42 and 32.
Sure.
I feel like I'm going to be a better dad for the long haul, but I'm just loving the hell out of it.
Yeah,
Whereas music was really my thing, fatherhood is way up there now.
Good for you.
Yeah.
So, and thanks. Yeah, I think people who get being a parent, enjoy being a parent, get that. They're like, oh yeah, I get that.
Yep.
Right.
I think we both get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got 2, I got 3.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. Yeah, but
Yeah. With that though,
I-
it does take away some of your ability to get out.
It's
yeah.
time.
It does.
Lots of time.
I haven't done anything that I would consider real songwriting since we concluded the Noir album. I've got ideas, but I haven't really hunkered down in the way that I had before Ben was born. But that's coming. It's a kind of thing where sometimes it takes one thing, and for the Noir record, it was Red Carpet. There'll be one thing, and again, you guys asked me earlier whether or not the next record is going to be a noir thing. And I think it's going to kind of lean that way, but I think it's definitely going to be more of a storytelling and cinematic thing, and that certainly will lend itself to being more like the Noir album. I just don't know that it will be as dour as those themes are, across the board. There's not a lot of hope. I remember James Elroy, who wrote L.A. Confidential and another, his description of film noir is that in film noir everyone is fucked,
Right.
and that's it. Yeah.
What I keep everything you're saying and the pieces and parts you're mixing together. What pops in my head is the movie Sin City.
Oh yeah,
Frank,
oh,
I
totally,
feel like that kind
totally.
of fits a lot of these themes like quite well, right?
Yeah, there
It's
was a point where I had considered working with an artist to do a graphic novel that would illustrate storylines that have all the songs. Like every
I
one of
could
the
see
songs.
that.
So that like when you were talking earlier, like not like Pulp Fiction, where you have these different stories all in one film. It would be a graphic novel that would cover all 10 songs with a story on each.
That is a cool idea. I like that.
Yeah,
That's
and
sweet.
Maybe.
Well, if anybody could pull it off, I feel like you could. Holy smokes!
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, and then the album, I thought was interesting is we were actually talking to interview prior to this was Haskins, but we were talking about full length album and what's that mean. But this is like almost a full hour.
Yeah.
It's not common to see that often anymore. I feel like, or maybe just the people
I
I've
agree,
listened-
and it was something that I only considered after the fact.
Okay.
Because again, I mentioned Pink Floyd. I was trying to make kind of a Floyd record in length.
Okay.
And that's my thing. I'm not about putting one song out and another song out, but I recognize that the model
These days,
for creative output is kind of changing.
it pushes that.
Thing is, I don't know that I'm going to change because
And you don't have to.
Exactly. I was going to say that you make art really to kind of please yourself first, and then kind of share it with other people and hope that it resonates. And there may be a happy medium between between how we did this record and what a more modern approach is. But yeah, I'm glad that it's that long, and it probably could have been longer.
Right.
There were some other like noir ideas that they got left.
Sure.
Got left out, but
I think that's pretty common with most
Yeah.
albums. Something
Yeah.
doesn't quite make the cut.
yeah.
It sounds like you're being true to yourself and true what you would like to do, and I'm glad to hear anybody that a creative person that puts something out in the world isn't trying to push it a certain way for a reason that was not part of what their idea was to begin with.
Yeah,
Whether it's to make money or please someone else, it's like, I love hearing that people don't do that. Because I'm sure there's so many artists that kind of did do that, and maybe they're not as happy as they could be. They put out music, they make money, but they don't like any of it. They don't care. They're just a voice or a this or that. They're in the corporation and the machine,
The word that I often use to describe that is authentic.
Yeah.
If
perfect.
this was a very authentic cause and approach that we took in making this. I knew that there would be people who would like it and dig on it, but it certainly wasn't made to to please people or expecting it to catch fire or something. It was like, this is the record I've always wanted to make.
That's awesome. Oof.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Getting little chills here, man. This is awesome.
So you've talked about like some of your background and the themes or genres of film that have played into this. What are some of the musical influences? You did talk a little bit about that too, because you said Pink Floyd and
Herbie Hancock. And
who are some of your other influences?
I did mention Tom Waits.
Yep.
But as far as being a guitar player goes, when you think about Pink Floyd, that means David Gilmour. So David Gilmour is a big influence on my playing. I like the guitar abilities of The Edge from U2. I've always, and again, like when you listen to the Joshua Tree, I would consider the Joshua Tree a very cinematic record, in its sound and approach. So there's a little bit here and there of the Edge's approach, especially the way that I play slide, I think. You mentioned Angelo Badalamenti was a big influence on the record. Another one, especially with the saxophone, I don't know if you guys remember Morphine. Morphine was a band that was around, especially in the mid-'90s, and they had their own brand of music that they called low rock.
Really?
Huh.
And
I don't know this.
Oh, you guys are gonna love.
What?
You guys are gonna love Morphine.
Okay.
Okay, Morphine was a trio from Boston, so they're a trio, 3-piece.
Yeah.
Drums, saxophone, and a guy who plays 2-string fretless bass with a slide tuned to open D.
Interesting.
And has this really deep voice, and like lyrically, like Horseshoes and Hand Grenades is very much inspired by Morphine.
Okay.
But Morphine was just so cool. And, the punchline to Morphine is that their frontman, Mark Sandman, again, incredibly musician, died tragically on stage, had a heart attack.
Oh my gosh.
And like in Italy or Spain in his mid-40s.
Whoa.
And I had tickets to see them when they were coming to Detroit within months of that. And, Mark Sandman passed away, and of course, that was kind of it for Morphine. But if, when we talk about a noir influence, Morphine, you guys will love Morphine.
We'll check
you will
that out.
love Morphine.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So that they're big influence on the record. I think those are the big ones. There may be something that I'm forgetting here, but I will say this, especially when we were tracking the record. It sounds funny to say this, but I double tracked some of the solos, especially About to Get Evil, the outro solo and About to Get Evil. You'll hear 2 guitars basically playing the same thing. There might be a little bit of a difference between them, but that's very much a Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath thing.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think it's Scorpions when I think of that.
Yeah.
Did a lot of I don't know whether that was both guitars or just a double of
Well,
one.
they Scorpions, Judas Priest, stuff like that. They would do kind of harmonies and stuff, but Iommi would record the solo and then go back and record another solo, And sometimes
Layer
they would be playing the same things, or they would alternate in different directions. You know.
Interesting.
Yeah, like you hear that
he's a great
in
guitar
War
player.
Pigs and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But it's
Right at the beginning. Yeah, I can tell
it's fun to do that. It's fun to do
for
that.
sure.
So
And a more interesting way of doing it than just getting a pedal to make it sound like, I'm sure there's some sort of harmonic pedal you could get to get that sound, to make it sound like your two guitars are playing the same thing.
you can do it with you can kind of fake it sometimes with a delay and pan one right and one left.
Yeah, maybe that's what I was
so
thinking.
they sound like two separate tracks. But that was a fun thing.
Maybe live, that's like something you'd do live to get that effect, because unless you got two guys playing the same thing, two guitar players, but a lot of times you don't.
Yeah. I want to once again plug our producer Peter J, who was just, again, this is during the pandemic that we did a lot of work on that record, and he was just so good to work with. A little history on him: the primary blues venue in the Detroit area for a number of years was a place called Callahan's. It was in Auburn Hills. So a lot of the kind of mid-level blues acts, not like huge ones that would play the Fox, but the tier under that are, legit talent would come through and usually play Callahan's. He was the house sound guy there for that whole run. And, like when you see YouTube videos, live videos from Callahan's, you're like, man, the sound is really awesome on this video. It's because of Peter J.
Whoa.
And this is a guy who went to NYU, has run the board at Electric Ladyland, and now lives in the Detroit area. And I think, and I mean, I know this for a fact, I'm not speaking out of turn, that he had an opportunity to really utilize all his creativity and skill in a way that he may not have done on any other record.
Okay.
Because we spent that kind of time being very meticulous about it, and just working through stuff. And he's the type of guy that our session might end at 10 p.m. and he's emailing me a mix at 3 a.m.
Wow. He must have been excited to work on it.
Yeah, where he's done some incredible stuff with it, or suggested something that we gave a try or whatever. But we had such a good time making that record. I know I'll work with him on whatever our next thing is. But there's something to be said for finding the right producer. I have a pretty good home studio set up, and my chops are okay in that area. But when you work with somebody who really, really, really knows what they're doing, it's a relief. It's well worth the money that you spend, and things have this organic quality where they just take off. You're like, man, I started with this idea. I'm holding my hands kind of real close together, and we ended up with this. Now I'm holding them real wide apart. It was great. He's such a great dude, and just such a pleasure to work with, and really made a great record. So
that's sweet.
Thanks.
It's awesome that you're retaining you've learned a lot throughout your life about music, I'll just say creativity in general.
Yeah, you know what?
You're pulling out names. You're pulling out all sorts of stuff.
That's my creative karma. This is an aspect of Buddhism, because we kind of go back to when I am in college. I'm not that great a guitar player. I'm not writing many songs, but I'm starting to learn that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm learning how to use multi-track equipment and everything, but I've probably played out live like 4 times at that point. And I took, over the course of a couple of semesters, back-to-back 500-level courses on film noir. And that's what introduced me to film noir and got me, familiar with, the plot themes and a lot of the classics that are in that genre. So, I shut the door on that when I get my degree in '93, but it stays, it sticks in my subconscious, in my toolkit. And then later on, in life, it manifests in this record. I'm very proud of the fact that something that in my early 20s really comes to fruition in what I do creatively in my late 40s and early 50s. So
sure, yeah.
But again, that's a thing where, I just want to say to young people out there, especially, what you're going through now may bloom, later on in a way that you had not foreseen. And that again, that's an aspect of Buddhism and this particularly the Buddhism that I practice, is about cause and effect. You know, you make a cause and you see the effect. When you make, these really kind of determined causes in your life that create value. That's an important term. That create value, not just for yourself but for others. But really create value, and you see the effect of it later on. It can be life changing. Certainly life affirming.
Yeah.
You know, and that's definitely been the case for me. The actual proof. You know.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah,
Tying it all
yeah,
back together. The actual proof.
Yeah.
Oof.
Awesome.
You know, something else I want to plug
Go ahead.
over here is I have a good friend that I grew up with in Waterford that I fell out of touch with for many years. And then we ended up kind of reconnecting, and I played on a record that he put out in, I think it was 2017. His band's called Wide Track.
Okay.
And, you know,
Wide Track.
I would encourage you guys to speak with him. But I played on a Wide Track record. Wide Track 3 is the name of it, in 2017. And that was huge for me because it really got me back into being a guitar player and working on music, and kind of set the stage for the Noir record, because it really reminded me of how much I love arranging and playing guitar and having something to play over, and certainly collaborating with somebody. I think it's a really fine record, and he's put out a couple since then. His son at the time, I think, was 10 or 11, and ended up playing bass on the record. So now he's like 19 or 20.
Wow.
And is a better musician than anybody.
Oh, cool.
So he plays
out.
Guitar and bass, and other instruments as well. He's a drummer as well. But Ron, my friend from Wide Track, is a great drummer. A Musician Institute graduate. I don't know if you know the Musicians Institute out in California, but they, really put out a lot of talent over the years. And you need to speak to him and check out Wide Track 3.
Okay.
There's if you like any of the guitar work on the Noir album,
We do.
there's more of probably a rock approach to the stuff that's on Wide Track 3, but man, I had a blast making that record, and there's some fire on that, man.
Cool. I know what I'll be listening to on the way home.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, they just Wide Track just put out a record here in the last month with some great stuff on it. And again, you'll see what I mean when I say that Ron's son Zach has blossomed into this incredible musician, and I really foresee some great things for them. He's phenomenal. He's phenomenal. Yeah, I would hope you guys would interview them in the future here, because once you hear like the record that they've got out, you're gonna go, oh my god.
Yeah, we have to talk to these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much talent in the state, and it's amazing. It's like we keep uncovering new rocks and all the time. And
that's one thing, when we were talking before this, and you guys were talking about the niche of your podcast. This is really a thing. You guys are making a cause here, because it just happens this way. There is going to be a point here in the next 5 to 10 years where Michigan music is going to really rise to the top in a way that is going to be formidable. You know what I'm saying? And people are going to be like, seeking out your podcast for that reason, especially if you've talked to some of these people when they were coming up, and this is what they sounded like in 2023. And, they're still the same guys, but listen to this, And certainly as an artist, I would feel a sense of loyalty to you guys. I mean, I'm really enjoying this.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of thing that I would certainly come back again in the future if we do something else.
For sure. It's funny you say that. We've talked to, so not only bands and artists, but the places they play, venue owners. We've had a recent interview with a venue owner, and he said very similar things, like he loves seeing someone that's, we'll call him a nobody right now, that can play his small venue, and then in a couple of years, he sees them get so big. He's like, I couldn't get them back to play, even though they loved playing here. I can't get them back here. They're just too popular. They don't have time in their schedule. Like, they've blown up. They've gotten huge. I have to imagine, guys that run venues see that quite often. Like, all these people grow up from playing their first few shows at their place to, arenas at some point 10 years later or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's, such a cool, interesting thing. And we like not just the artists and the bands, but yeah, like I said, the venues. We've
Yeah.
interviewed people that own recording studios, because there's all these parts and pieces that make up what Michigan music is.
Yes.
Just lots of different things.
It's good of you to recognize
Yeah,
that, because
right.
those are without good producers and good studios and good venues, then people are relying on their phone
Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
Exactly.
and clicks,
Right.
and there's you cannot substitute the vital experience of hearing music live. Like I talked about what a big deal it was for me to see Roger Waters and Stevie Ray Vaughan as my first 2 shows. That makes me who I am as a musician, and
Sure.
I'm
Yeah.
happy and proud of that. But I appreciate the cause and effect of what you guys do.
Awesome.
This is cool. This is cool.
Well, we love it, so I think we're gonna keep doing it.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, I get that impression.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you guys seem like you're having a great time.
We are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Brian, what's you kind of talked a little bit about you're not sure exactly what's next, but do you have any shows coming up in the next year in 2024?
Well,
that
yeah,
you-
I mean, we've got some shows left for the rest of this year. We're playing a benefit on Sunday the 19th at the Green Door in Lansing.
Okay.
There's a bunch of like 4 or 5 bands on the bill, but it's for a food bank.
Okay.
It's kind of
Closer
a
to us, Jeff. That'd be an
Yeah.
easy one to go check out.
right?
It's a Thanksgiving drive. We'll probably do an hour set. I think Joshua James, the sax player, will be there. So if you could make that, that would be awesome. But it's definitely for a good cause. And Capital Area Blues Society, we represented them in the International Blues Challenge
Okay.
a couple years back. Made it to the semifinals there. And,
Nice.
They treated us really well and continue to treat us very well. I love them a lot. We're members of the Detroit Blues Society as well. Shout out to them. But Cabs has always done right by us, and the fact that they just reached out to us recently, it was like, hey, will you guys play this event? We're like, oh hell yeah,
Yeah. That's awesome.
So we've got that coming up. We're playing kind of a private event at this nursery, like a garden nursery.
Yeah.
The night before Thanksgiving, in
Interesting.
Pontiac,
Okay.
a place called Goldner Walsh Nursery. And we always have a good time there. I was kind of skeptical of the first time that we played there, and then it's such a cool place to play.
Interesting.
Because you're out in the night air,
Yeah.
and they've got kind of these cool sparkle lights and everything up. There's some of those heater tubes here and there to kind of keep the temperature not too cold.
Right.
And, you run your own sound. Everybody brings their own booze or whatever. And it's like this kind of cool private party. And you always get really big music fans that come to this, So that's been really fun. So we got that to finish up November. And then December 2nd, we're playing one of our favorite places in Hazel Park, a place called Max Dugan's.
Okay.
Shout out to Steve Sawyers at Max Dugan's. And I think that will probably be our last gig of the year.
Okay.
And again, being a dad, being a husband, that's very important to me these days. And going to finish out the year and that kind of thing. But I think, as we get into next year, it's my plan to be working on some new stuff.
Okay.
Just to start woodshitting and writing and co-writing, with new members in the band. I neglected to mention that we have a keyboard player that has joined us as well, a guy named Cam Dixon. Cam is a rookie. Cam's like, I don't know, like 21, 22, 23, something like that. A guy that I met through the Buddhist organization that I belong to, SGI, Soka Gakkai International.
Okay.
And it's really been great to have, his youth and talent and approach. I can tell that he just loves playing music. And, one thing about being in my 50s, a lot of times when you get around musicians that are my age, they're kind of jaded at this point. They've kind of lost that exuberance, or, oh, that gig's not worth my time. What's it pay? That kind of thing.
Right.
I could see that.
And to have somebody who is like, oh man, I'm just having a blast,
Excited.
and appreciates doing original material and that kind of thing. It's just, it's fun. It makes me wish that when I was back in my 20s, I had run into somebody who was in his 40s and 50s
Same.
and still got it.
Yeah.
But shout out to Cam Dixon as well.
That's
Sweet.
awesome.
So where can people find Big B? Where can they hear the music? Where they can find out more information about it?
Yeah, we're on Spotify and Amazon and Apple and our iTunes. But you can go to our website as well. You can spell out www.bigb and like the word and the actualproof.com. You get our record through our website is kind of, as always, the ideal way to get it.
Yeah.
And, you can see our dates on there and that kind of thing. We definitely welcome emails, correspondence from fans. I've heard from people in Europe.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is it's really cool to have somebody who doesn't owe you anything, and they only encounter your music through the internet and their ears. And when they're blown away by it and feel compelled to send you an email like, you guys are just the best or incredible, it's really, really validating to kind of get that from somebody and just be like, this started as an idea in my head, and, communicated with other musicians, and we went through this whole process, over months and then years, and then this gets released, and this guy in Spain hears this, after it's gone through that whole process and totally gets it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, totally gets it.
Cool.
Making that connection is really special,
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah,
That's
it's one of the reasons that music is just so fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool to do that.
Rock and roll. Thank you, Big B.
Thank you so much.
I think we could work out another interview with you. Maybe we'll do something different next time. Maybe it's with the band. Maybe we.
Yeah, I'm sure they'd love that.
I feel like we have so much more we could talk about.
Yeah.
But we're not going to go on all day. Right?
No,
we got to save some time for the family. I got a birthday party at home I got to get to for my family.
Yeah.
All that stuff. But you have been something else, my friend.
Thank you.
This has been
Thank you.
real.
Yeah. Enjoyed it.
Legit.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much. I really enjoyed it.
Okay. See you guys later. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks Big
Ryan.
B. Bitten music out.
If you enjoyed this episode, check out more episodes on any streaming service out there today, as well as our website.
www.themittenmusic.com.
You can also find playlists and concert listings there too.
Check us out on social medias, Facebook and Instagram.